The sixth hearing of the president's impeachment trial took place today. Conflicting statements were exchanged over whether there was an order by the president to prevent parliamentary activity by force on the night of the martial law declaration. The Korean government and businesses are joining a move to block access to Chinese AI service DeepSeek over data security concerns. Korea's current account surplus more than tripled on-year in 2024 to reach over $99 billion, backed by robust exports and more. It's February 6, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. President Yoon appeared at the Constitutional Court today for the sixth hearing of his impeachment trial, where more key witnesses turned up to testify. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young joins us live to bring the latest. Soo-young, today's hearing started in the morning as opposed to the afternoon and lasted around 8 hours with some fierce rounds of questioning.
Good evening, Tongmin. Yes, you're totally right. There was a strong clash. There were strong clashes today over the key question today, which was whether President Yoon had ordered National Assembly lawmakers to be physically removed from Parliament. And President Yoon himself actually spoke out with a strong counter-argument. And while fiery exchanges were made as former Army Special Warfare Commander Kwak Jong-geun delivered his testimony at the request of the National Assembly's impeachment panel. His previous statement contradicts the claims of President Yoon and former Defense Minister Kim Yong-yeon that the military was ordered to pull out military agents rather than lawmakers from the National Assembly. Kwak firmly maintained his position that in his phone call with Yoon, he understood that the president told him to remove legislators.
At the time, the 707th Special Mission Forces were in a standoff and weren't inside the main building. Since I received the call in that context, I naturally assumed he was referring to National Assembly members and understood it that way.
Then, with questions fired over his choice of words, he admitted the president told him to pull out numbers, or inwon in Korean, not legislators or 의원 inside the National Assembly. To this, the president himself spoke out.
저는 그냥 사람이라는 이런 표현을 놔두고 또 의원이면 의원이지 인원이라는 말을 저는 써본 적이 없습니다.
Yoon also refuted the former commander's claim that the president and the defense minister did not want the number of legislators in the assembly to reach 150, the number of votes needed to pass a motion to revoke martial law.
한 명, 두 명을 몇 명이 가서 끄잡아낼 수 있는 게 아니라 151명이든 152명이든 다 끄잡아내야만 그 회의를 막을 수 있는 것인데 그런 상황을 충분히 아는 사령관 입장에서 만약에 저나 장관이 의원을 끄집어내라는 취지의 얘기를 했다면 그냥 즉각 이거는 지금 현재 상황이 이렇기 때문에 우리 병력으로는 불가능합니다라고 얘기하는 게 상식이지.
He accused Kwak of conspiring to impeach him with First Deputy Director of the National Intelligence Service, Hong Jang-won, who also testified unfavorably for Yoon. Kim Yeon-tae, commander of the 707th Special Mission Battalion, who led the break-in at the National Assembly, also testified on Thursday. He said Commander Kwak Jong-geun did say that the number of people should not exceed 150, but noted Kwak seemed to be relaying instructions from a higher authority rather than issuing a command. Kim said he did not receive any orders to remove or restrict the movement of legislators in the National Assembly, but to lock down the building. Also standing witness was Presidential Secretary for Economic Affairs Park Chun-seop. He suggested that the opposition-led parliament's impeachment of various state officials, unilateral legislation and slashing of the government's budget comprehensively motivated Yoon's martial law. Yoon has claimed that these factors led to a national state of emergency, justifying his decree. The National Assembly's impeachment panel co-chair Kim Il-soo accused the president of changing his stance throughout the trial and solely focused on finding statements that were advantageous to him.
All right, so those were some major takeaways from the extended session. Meanwhile, Soo-young, the hearings are set to end next Thursday. Are we looking at a possible extension of these hearings?
Well, Jong-min, with just 2 sessions left, it seems that the court, it seems quite likely that the court will have to inevitably prolong the trial or add additional trial dates beyond February 13th. And the court said on Thursday that it selected an additional witness to the hearing, Cho Sung-yeon, the commander of the 1st Security Group under the Capital Defense Command. And now he was selected after Capital Defense Commander Lee Jin-woo, a key witness in Tuesday's hearing, refused to answer crucial questions to verify the orders that were given, including by President Yoon on the evening of December 3rd. According to prosecutors, Cho relayed orders by Lee Jin-woo to forcibly remove lawmakers and ordered troops to assist the Special Warfare Command in clearing a passage to do so. His testimony is scheduled for next Thursday at 5 p.m.
All right, Soo-young, thank you for the latest on the impeachment trial. Meanwhile, at the National Assembly today, Acting President Choi Sang-mok attended a hearing led by lawmakers into charges of insurrection against the Yoon administration. Our political correspondent Shin Ha-young has takeaways.
During a third assembly hearing on Thursday into allegations of insurrection by the president and some of his ministers, lawmakers directed their questions to Acting President Choi Sang-mok. The spotlight was on a controversial note Choi received on December 3rd, ordering the preparation of a budget for an emergency legislative body, presumably to replace the elected National Assembly. President Yoon previously said in his third impeachment hearing at the Constitutional Court that he learned about the note through media reports. Opposition party lawmakers on the special committee sought to determine whether President Yoon issued instructions to certain cabinet members through written notes at the time. Choi reaffirmed that he received the note but did not review it immediately.
If the emergency legislative body, as mentioned in the note, forcibly dissolved the National Assembly and replaced it, wouldn't that be an unconstitutional body?
I'm not aware of that matter.
Meanwhile, ruling party lawmakers claim that appointing Ma Eun-hyuk to the Constitutional Court would be unfair due to the lack of a bipartisan consensus.
I believe there was no bipartisan agreement on nominee Ma Eun-hyuk. What do you think?
I would say that there was no agreement between the parties at that time.
Thursday's session was also attended by Prime Minister Han Duk-soo and other officials. Han expressed concern that if the Constitutional Court doesn't make a decision the public can accept, it could cause national division. Ahead of Thursday's hearing, the committee called 25 witnesses, including President Yoon, Acting President Choi, and former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun to testify. However, 9 of them, including Yoon and Kim, submitted excuses to not appear. At the beginning of the hearings, the opposition-led committee issued orders for Kim and 3 others involved in Yoon's martial law declaration to appear as witnesses. The committee's investigation is scheduled to end on February 13th, but the opposition is considering pushing for an extension, citing the absence of key witnesses at previous hearings. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
Moving on, Acting President Choi Sang-mok has vowed to make use of all available measures to support the nation's economic recovery. This from an economic meeting held on Thursday focusing on people's livelihoods. To alleviate fuel costs, the temporary fuel tax cuts, originally set to end in February, will be extended for 2 more months until the end of April. This marks the 14th extension since the country introduced it in 2021. And to stabilize living costs, around $20 million will be allocated for discounts on agricultural and fisheries products between February and March. On top of that, 370,000 tons of fruits and vegetable imports with lowered tariffs will be introduced. Access to Chinese AI service DeepSeek is being restricted by government organizations and major companies here in Korea over data security concerns. Moon Hae-ryun has the details.
South Korean government agencies have restricted access to DeepSeek, a Chinese AI service accused of excessive data collection. On Thursday, the Ministry of Environment revealed that it blocked DeepSeek on all online computers as of 9 a.m., while the Ministry of Economy and Finance stated its plans to restrict access on computers connected to external networks. These measures come a day after the Ministry of National Defense, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy announced that access to DeepSeek on computers connected to external networks had been banned. These ministries handle a significant amount of classified information related to diplomacy, national security, and trade. A Defense Ministry official told reporters that the decision was made due to widespread concerns about the AI platform. This comes after the Ministry of the Interior and Safety issued an advisory to central government ministries and 17 metropolitan and provincial governments, urging officials to be cautious when using generative AI services like DeepSeek and ChatGPT. While the advisory did not explicitly call for a ban, it warned against entering sensitive or personal information into AI platforms, citing potential security risks. South Korea's Personal Information Protection Commission sent an inquiry to DeepSeek's headquarters, requesting details on its data collection and storage practices, but the company has yet to respond. The private sector is also taking action, with major Korean tech companies restricting the use of DeepSeek. Kakao, an official partner of OpenAI, recently banned its employees from using the service for work by citing security concerns. LGU Plus also issued a security notice banning employees from using DeepSeek for work on the company network and advised employees to avoid using DeepSeek on personal devices. Samsung, SK, and LG Electronics have long prohibited unauthorized software on company devices, while Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power recently reinforced its AI security policies, banning DeepSeek on its internal network. DeepSeek has also been banned from government computers in Australia and Japan, while Italy has gone as far as banning the app entirely. In the US, the state of Texas has blocked DeepSeek from government-owned devices. Meanwhile, the European Union and the UK are closely monitoring potential risks associated with Chinese AI platforms. 문혜련, Arirang News.
Following a stellar performance last December, Korea's current account marked a remarkable surplus last year at over $99 billion, more than triple the size noted in 2023. Choi Min-jung covers the latest numbers.
South Korea's current account surplus hit an all-time high for the month of December. According to data released by the Bank of Korea on Thursday, the country posted an almost $12.4 billion current account surplus in December 2024. This marks the largest December surplus on record. It's also the third largest monthly surplus in South Korean history. The hike was thanks to strong exports and increased dividend earnings. Exports increased annually by 6.6% to $63 billion. The continued growth in semiconductors and IT products, along with a slowdown in the decline of non-IT products such as automobiles, contributed to a higher export growth rate. The primary income account, or the net income earned by a country from its foreign investments, as well as wages paid to foreign workers, posted a $4.8 billion surplus in December. In particular, the dividend income surplus reached $3.6 billion. As a result, the cumulative current account surplus for 2024 reached $99 billion, more than 3 times the surplus in 2023. On an annual basis, this is the second largest current account surplus on record, following the figure posted in 2015. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Economies around the world are bracing for a potential trade war triggered by recent tariff announcements by U.S. President Donald Trump. This week, we take a look at this matter with our trade correspondent, Lee Soo-jin. To start us off, Soo-jin, can you tell us what has happened for the past couple of days?
Sure. So it has been a rather tumultuous couple of days in the past on the economic front as Trump's tariff threats sparked concerns of a global trade war. On Saturday local time, Trump announced 25% tariffs on goods from Canada and Mexico, while China was hit with a 10% tariff on various existing duty rates. Let's take a listen to what Trump said.
And I don't want to use countries, I don't want to use names, but tariffs are very powerful, both economically and in getting everything else you want.
And while they were to go into effect on Tuesday, Trump on Monday decided to pause the implementation of the tariffs for Canada and Mexico for at least 30 days. This comes as Canada agreed to implement a $1.3 billion border plan, which includes reinforcing the border with nearly 10,000 frontline personnel, as well as strengthening resources to respond to fentanyl and money laundering. And Mexico agreed to place 10,000 National Guard troops along the U.S. border to prevent the flow of drugs. But Trump's 10% tariff on Chinese products took effect just after midnight Tuesday. Within minutes, China's finance ministry announced retaliatory tariffs of 15% on U.S. coal and LNG, as well as 10% on crude oil, farm equipment, and certain automobiles to take effect on February 10th. And according to this expert, China's choice of which items to impose tariffs on was deliberate.
One thing, the phenomenon here is the agriculture pickup trucks will make magnificent impacts on the agriculture area that who are very strong supporters for Donald Trump. And another, the target items, coals and LNG, the oil refining the companies are also very strong supporters for Donald Trump.
What do Trump's tariffs mean for South Korea?
Right, so South Korea may actually see both risks and opportunities in regards to the tariffs on China. To start out with the positive, the tariffs imposed on China mean that Korean exporters may gain a competitive edge in supplying products that China previously dominated. This means that U.S. companies may shift their supply chains to South Korean firms. Let's take a listen.
In markets like the semiconductor industry, companies like SK Hynix already have a strong presence. And if tariffs are imposed on China, South Korean products could gain an even greater competitive advantage.
As semiconductors are South Korea's top export item, this would boost the country's trade surplus. But the expected drop in exports of Chinese goods to the U.S. may reduce Chinese orders for South Korea's key intermediate goods. Here's what the same expert said.
Our country's export structure depends on selling intermediate goods to China, for them to be assembled into the final product for export to other countries. So if demand for China's goods declines, demand for these intermediate goods will also decline.
It's also important to note that there are also growing concerns about the possibility of tariffs on the EU and South Korea as well.
And what should be done to respond to these ongoing tariff concerns?
Well, for one, staying proactive will be key in this turbulent trade environment. And the South Korean government is already doing so through measures announced just yesterday that include establishing a strategic advanced industry fund worth over 34 trillion Korean won, or around 23 billion US dollars. Let's take a listen.
Ongoing global trade uncertainties, including additional tariffs on China, require close attention. We will establish a strategic advanced industry fund at the Industrial Bank of Korea to support high-tech sectors like batteries and biotech.
As for the private sector, SK Group Chairman Choi Tae-won will lead a delegation to Washington, D.C. on the 19th to discuss response strategies, with a meeting with Trump reportedly under discussion. And here's why this is important at this time.
While Trump has not targeted Korea directly, he is threatening tariffs on virtually everybody. Said that he wanted to replace subsidies for semiconductor factories with high tariffs.
And moving forward, the expert I spoke to suggested Korean companies use local politicians in Republican-leaning U.S. areas where many of their factories are actually located to emphasize that tariffs could harm jobs and investment in the U.S.
All right, Sujin, thank you for the report today.
Thank you for having me.
On the international front, Washington's allies and adversaries alike have voiced their firm opposition to the idea of the U.S. taking over the Gaza Strip. Lee Seung-jae covers the condemnation.
During a meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Tuesday, U.S. President Donald Trump proposed that the U.S. take over the Gaza Strip and resettle the Palestinian population. His plans to turn the area into the Riviera of the Middle East were heavily criticized by Western allies on Wednesday. The French Ministry of Foreign Affairs stressed its opposition to any forced displacement of Gazans, adding that Paris will continue to push for the implementation of a two-state solution. Italian Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani said while Italy will look into Trump's plans, it still remains in favor of a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. German President Walter Steinmeier slammed the plan, calling it unacceptable, adding that such actions will form a serious basis for the upcoming talks between the regional actors and the U.S. administration. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres also criticized the proposal, calling the relocation of Gazans a form of ethnic cleansing.
In the search for solutions, we must not make the problem worse. It is vital to stay true to the bedrock of international law. It is essential to avoid any form of ethnic cleansing.
The paramilitary Palestinian Islamic Jihad group denounced what it called racist comments by the U.S. leader and vowed to fight his plans in Gaza. In a statement on Wednesday, the group said that Israel's attempt to force Palestinians to leave Gaza failed and that Trump's proposal will also fail. Despite the international condemnation, President Trump said Wednesday at the White House that everybody loves his proposal for a U.S. takeover of Gaza. Trump's officials were quick to clear up what they believe were misunderstandings, as U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that Trump's plan was a unique offer to step in and clear debris and destruction in Gaza. He added that the move to relocate the Gazans was not meant as a hostile move and that details still needed to be worked out. With Trump also considering U.S. troop deployment to the Gaza Strip, U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said Trump is willing to think outside the box, look for new and unique dynamic ways to solve problems, adding that the Pentagon is prepared to look at all options. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
An agency under the United Nations has urged North Korea to take immediate steps to end human rights violations. The Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights said in its latest report that it was able to observe violations of the right to food and freedom of expression in the regime, such as warrantless searches of homes. It conducted 175 interviews with escapees from the north and victims of human rights violations, and said many of them had been put in inhumane conditions in detention facilities, where they underwent forced labor, torture, and a lack of adequate food. The report will be submitted to the UN Human Rights Council at its 58th session, scheduled to be held later this month. Leaders of South Korean tech giants Samsung Electronics, LG, and Naver, among others, will participate in the Artificial Intelligence Action Summit next week. This year's summit will be hosted in Paris on February 10th and 11th. Among those expected to attend are U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. The summit, now in its third time after London and Seoul, is gaining attention amid rising concerns over China's DeepSeek, sparking talks of an AI alliance.
Cold wave warnings and advisories have been in place in most parts of the country for several days already. With freezing cold conditions in Seoul, the Han River is partially frozen. The cold spell will continue to freeze the country tomorrow. Meanwhile, from this afternoon, snow has been falling across the country, including Seoul. By tomorrow morning, up to 15 centimeters of snow is expected on the west coast of Chungcheongnam-do province and the Jeollado provinces, 1 to 5 centimeters in the Seoul metropolitan area, and 3 to 8 centimeters in rest of the central inland areas. Most of the snow will ease off from tomorrow afternoon, but more snow is forecast in the southwest and on Jeju Island until this weekend. Tomorrow's Seoul will be as cold as today at minus 12 degrees, Daejeon at minus 7 degrees. Highs will move up to minus 6 degrees in Seoul, 3 degrees in Busan. This cold wave will continue until this weekend and recover back to normal readings from early next week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
And that is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.